All right, welcome back to the Fit 40 podcast, where we simplify exercise and nutrition for busy people over 40 so they can improve their health and feel amazing. I'm your host, Brian Fitzsimmons, certified personal trainer and nutrition coach for people over 40 since 2015. And today we have another awesome topic on deck. We're going to be talking about why the hell is fat loss so much harder after 40? Why does it feel like your body just all of a sudden decided, hey, F you, and decided to just do nothing that used to work in the past? So we're going to cover it in detail, and I'm going to leave you with some awesome tips on how to fix that and how to start seeing positive results going forward after you implement them. All right. But before we jump in, as always, if you're new here or if you're returning and you haven't already hit follow or subscribe, go ahead and do so right now so that way you don't miss another episode going forward. And it does help support this podcast, this channel on YouTube. So I really appreciate it if you take 2 seconds. All right. Now, let's get into it. So, why does fat loss feel so much harder after 40? So let's start off with like how this feels, because I hear it all the time from clients. They say like it used to be so much easier. Like you just cut carbs, maybe add in some cardio, go for a couple extra miles, maybe do a hit body class or whatever, and boom, it'd fall right off. But those same things are no longer working. And it just kind of feels like your body changed overnight and it's fighting you every step of the way. So let's talk about what exactly is going on. Like, what the hell changed? So first, let's talk about the elephant in the room, hormones. It does play a role. It does play a role because when your hormones shift in the way that they do, so like let's talk about, say, perimenopause, for example, like when your estrogen levels go down and you start feeling the effects from that, and you start feeling lousy, you start feeling these menopausal symptoms, all of a sudden it's going to impact how you feel, because you're going to feel more lethargic, more brain fog, and all these things, which actually results in you moving less. Okay. It's also going to affect where you store fat. Or let me back this up. Got to include the guys too, because andropause happens too at a certain point where testosterone starts to go down and you feel lousy because what you're used to, your body feeling a certain way, just does not feel that way anymore. And when you hit that point, you tend to store fat in different areas, or more so in certain areas like in the belly. And it makes it harder to make good decisions. Like when you try and stick to a diet, or you just say, hey, I'm going to eat better, it doesn't last quite as long because you're fighting this uphill battle. You feel like you are just never able to get to that place where you feel good all the time. Like you may feel like that in the first week or two, maybe, but then it never seems to last. And it could also reduce your metabolism if you have a condition like hypothyroid, for example. Like that will bring your metabolism down to a point, but it's not to a point where you can never overcome it. It's a few hundred calories, but that will basically get you out of a calorie deficit if you calculate it out on one of these online calculators and you're like, wait, this doesn't work for me. That could be why, if you struggle with that condition. But all that to say, it's not your metabolism that's the issue, because for the majority of people, assuming you don't have a condition like that and you've been to your doctor, you've been to your endocrinologist, and they've run all these tests and your hormones are fine, they're in a normal place, it really doesn't impact your metabolism greatly, just being at a certain age, until you're into like your mid 60s roughly. And they've studied this. This is not just me saying, oh, I don't notice it until my people turn 60. No, they have done studies on people, like not just a handful, like hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands, possibly millions at this point, of getting these metrics to figure out, okay, what happens? Like what is causing this? And at the end of the day, it does come down to calories, but not in the simple, annoying way that you hear on social media where it's like, it's just calories in, calories out. Like, yeah, it is, but that's such a shallow answer. Like, let's get into the weeds a little bit and talk about why that actually matters and what's happening with that. Because when you are in your 20s, your 30s, like whatever that age is in your head where you're like, this used to be so much easier, activity outside of the gym is usually higher. So in your 20s, like let's say you're in college, you're walking to class, or when you're in your early career, like maybe you're in a city or something and you're walking on, or you're taking the subway, you're taking the train, and then you move out to the suburbs and now you're in a car instead. So you're not getting all of that activity. Things like that can play a big role. Maybe at your work, like you leveled up to the point where you're no longer like boots on the ground and you're doing door-to-door stuff, and now you're a manager role, so you're more at a desk. Like that stuff does impact it. I feel it myself because even in my 30s, when I was doing just online and I shifted from doing in person training for like 12 hours a day on my feet to online, it became significantly harder to lose fat because you got to go out of your way to add that activity back in. And now that I'm doing more in person again, it's actually easier to maintain a body weight and lose when I want to because of that extra activity being on your feet. So that makes a big difference. Next is sleep. As we get older, sleep just tends to fall down way down the priority list because we have work, you got kids, you got all these things that are impacting your sleep. Maybe you don't get to see your spouse very often. So that's your time at night to be with each other. So you're like, I'll sacrifice an hour or two. And that's totally fine. But it does have an impact. It doesn't come, what's the word? It doesn't come risk free or consequence free. That's what I was going for. Okay. Because when you sacrifice sleep, you're more lethargic the next day. You have more brain fog. You just feel lousy. And it actually reduces how much you move. You're not as likely to tap your foot at your desk. You're not as likely to want to take the stairs or to park a little bit further away because you're feeling like you're dragging. So you're making these little compromises all day that are actually reducing the amount of activity that you do throughout the day. And this reduces what is called NEAT, or non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So if we're talking about your metabolism, you want to understand what it is. If we're talking about in the context of like burning calories, because your metabolism can be broken down into the nerdier explanation, which is like just all the chemical processes in your body. But in the context that it matters for people listening right now, okay, how many calories you burn comes down to four things. Now, a lot of things impact these four things, but it comes down to four categories. One is your basal metabolic rate. That is the amount of calories you burn at rest. Just if you were to lay in bed all day, that's how many calories you burn. And it is a lot of calories. It's the most calories out of these four things, because that's why, for example, body weight is one of the big things that dictates how many calories you burn. Bigger people burn more calories. That's why your husband can lose weight no problem, and like maybe you have a hard time with that, or you got that one sibling that has no problem keeping the weight off and you have a hard time because maybe they're bigger than you are, like just body size, bigger, taller, more like longer bones, things like that. It takes more calories to sustain that, just plain and simple. And also, people that are more muscular tend to have an easier time keeping their weight in a healthy place because that muscle requires energy to burn at rest. So you end up doing your body a service by packing on that muscle because it helps with not only that, but also better insulin sensitivity and other things that help you feel better throughout the day. So it's got a downstream effect there. And then also, so we've got basal metabolic rate. The second biggest chunk of the pie is that non-exercise activity, okay? That NEAT. That is the stuff you do outside of the gym, like not intentionally exercising, but you're still kind of doing these things that require burning calories, like talking with your hands, tapping your foot, opting for the stairs, things like that. Then there's thermic effective food, which is the amount of calories it takes to break down the food that you eat and process it and digest it and excrete it. That's why processed foods are usually not the best, because they did the job that your body was supposed to do. So now all those calories that would have been used to break down these whole foods are no longer needed because the factory just did that for you. So now you can eat more of those foods because it doesn't take quite as long to break them down and sit in your stomach and send that signal to your brain that says, hey, we're filling up. No, it's just a straight shot. It's like a speedway going through your body, especially when they don't have things like protein and fiber due to that processing. And then last but not least is exercise. And that's honestly the smallest sliver of the pie. It's only like 5 to 10%. So that's why exercise in itself, without accounting for nutrition, is a horrible fat loss strategy. But it helps when it comes to fat loss maintenance because of building that muscle and increasing your basal metabolic rate. So if you want to maintain where you're at, exercise is awesome to start immediately. So you don't want to put it off and then all of a sudden start exercising. You want to get as much muscle as possible by the time your diet is over. So that's a little snippet of your metabolism. Okay, back to calorie balance, okay? Sleep is affected, and that will reduce non-exercise activity. Stress will also do this. It will reduce non-exercise activity because you will feel lousy. You will feel lower energy. You are going to be in a place mentally where you just don't want to be bothered with another decision. So you're more likely to go for comfort and convenience foods, which usually does not end well. Okay. Then there's calorie dense food just being more convenient than it ever has been. When you were younger, chances are there weren't two Starbucks within a block of each other or a McDonald's right next to a Burger King. In my childhood there were, but like if we're talking about 80s, 70s, 60s, like let's be honest, that didn't exist. It wasn't that easy. And there was a lot more sitting down at the table with your parents, like actually having a meal at the table instead of everybody having a screen in front of their face, which also reduces how full you feel when you are distracted eating. So that plays a role. So we have these things, and also social media, TV, billboards always showing you food. Like anybody listening right now, if they have a foodie account or something like that, every time you see that food, you're hungrier and hungrier, and it's always top of mind. And you wonder why there's this food noise. And that might also be biological too. So now you're getting a double whammy of that. So it's a no-win situation if you've got all these factors at play. So we got to figure out how the heck do we get to a place where we're setting you up for success and creating an environment that supports the goals that you have for yourself instead of fighting this losing battle. Okay. And then on top of that, before we get into how to fix it, the one big thing that ends up happening when we try and fix it on our own is crash dieting. Okay. We are pushed these crash diets, these starvation diets that keep you on a binge restrict cycle. So you never end up seeing lasting progress because they want to keep you on the hook financially. And on top of that, it ruins your relationship with food and your belief because it gives you unsustainable workouts that burn you out. Like you end up doing these P90X style workouts that make you feel like, oh my God, I'm dying. And then the fact that you survived it is the win. Not that you're actually seeing progress, but the fact that you made it through is somehow the win. That's not how it should go. Okay. And then like when it comes to workouts, you should be feeling better as you do them, not feeling like, oh my God, I couldn't believe I got through that. Starvation diets. You should not be feeling lousy all day because you're on a diet. You should be feeling better when you increase certain things like whole nutrient dense foods. They should be making you feel really good. You shouldn't be stuck on these bars and these shakes that leave you with next to no nutrients, like micronutrients especially, and just happen to hit a calorie total that says they're doctor approved, even though that doctor is probably the laughing stock of his medical school, but he's still doctor approved, taking a paycheck from these companies that are trying to just take your money. And at the end of the day, that's what they do. They drain your money, they drain your energy, and they drain your belief in yourself. Because at the end of the day, when you do things like Weight Watchers, Optavia, Nutrisystem, all these things over and over again, and you hop on, hop off, hop on, hop off, you're like, I just can't stick with this. I suck at this. I'm not made for this. And that's a load of bullshit. That's what they want. That's not the truth. The truth is you just need to try something different. Okay. At the end of the day, you just need to stop trying to do what everybody else is doing, supposedly everybody else. It's really just marketing, because that's what these companies do. They market the hell out of it to make it seem like everybody's doing it. You're missing out. But guess what? Everybody else is not better off. Okay. About 75% of people are metabolically unhealthy. 90% of US adults over the age of 20 are at risk of developing heart disease. And 1 in 10 people have diabetes, and 90 to 95% of those people with diabetes have type 2. Okay, so type 1, can't really do much about it. You were born that way. It is what it is. But type 2, a lot of that can come from excess body fat due to being overweight, obese, and just overall sedentary. Okay. So everybody else is failing at this, and you need to try something different, because otherwise it's going to be the same old story over and over and over again. So let's cut the shit. Let's get to what actually makes a difference. Let's do the right things. Okay. Number one, instead of crash dieting, first, rev your metabolism up as high as you possibly can. Okay. Like I just talked about, those 4 things: your BMR, non-exercise activity, thermic effective food, exercise activity. These 6 things will help bring those as high up as possible, so you are a calorie burning machine, and it will make your life a whole lot easier. Okay. Number 1 is get your steps up. It's one of the easiest things to do if you are able to. All right. So I set the bar low. Like with clients, I say 5K minimum, just 5K. Because for the average person, even with the craziest of jobs, if you do one intentional walk throughout the day or get some sort of a step treadmill underneath you, you could knock that out no problem. Or even if you don't have the money to afford a step treadmill, you could just make it a little less convenient when you're at the grocery store. Like take a little extra time and go back and forth. Or if you don't have the time to do that, you can go up and down your stairs, or you could just do steps in place while you're watching TV. Things like that literally can add up to a minimum of 5K. Now, if you could get it up to 7 or 8, even better, or even 10K. And honestly, at that step count, even without exercise, it feels substantially easier to lose weight. Okay. Next is consistent workouts, 2 to 4 strength workouts per week, and ideally getting cardio in there as well. So if you can get, say, 2 strength workouts and 2 cardio workouts, you'll be in a really, really good spot. Not so much from like a calorie burn perspective because that exercise activity is a small amount, but just an overall health perspective. And because that overall health is going to improve, you're going to feel better, you're going to burn more calories outside of the gym just by making sure that you're consistent in the gym. Next is whole foods. This is the whole thermic effect of food. When you eat more whole foods, like more nutrient dense foods that contain protein, that contain fiber, they take so much longer to digest. And while they're sitting in your body is using calories to break it down and burn it up and put it where it needs to go, instead of these super processed foods not requiring any of that. Okay, next is sleep. Now, I know sleep is a tough one because honestly, some people just cannot get another hour, and that's understandable. We all lead different lives, but if you are able to get another hour because you know you've been doing that extra episode of Netflix, totally get it. I did it last night, but you can make that change consciously and be like, okay, we're going to get to bed 1 hour earlier. If you can, do it. Okay. If you can't, really hone in on the sleep quality. And also sleep quality on top of adding that hour can help a ton as well. So when it comes to sleep quality, the best thing to do is make your room like a cave. Make it as dark as possible, like unplug things you can unplug so that the light isn't showing. And if there is a light showing, if it doesn't affect the functionality of it, maybe put a little electrical tape over it, because those little lights catch your eye at night and they wake you up. Okay, get some blackout curtains if you can afford them. They are worth their weight in gold. It's dark, it's quiet. Okay, I know sometimes depending on the environment, where we're living, it isn't always possible. But if you could get some good earplugs, if you can get some white noise going, like a fan, especially for the perimenopausal crowd, like having a fan on you can make a big, big, big difference. So that way you can turn it on and off depending on your temperature, like your body temperature, if you're too hot, too cold. But also it has a white noise setting for most of them. Like if you can get that kind, it can help a lot with drowning sound out. And then also dark, quiet, and cold. So making sure that it's not too hot, not too cold, like just right for you where you're comfortable and you can sleep well. I know that this is tough because especially men and women, very different. Me and my fiance fight over the thermostat at night every single night. I like it at a cool 68. She likes it at a 72. Otherwise, she's freezing. So we compromise and I put it down to 68 like when we get in bed, and then I put it at like that cools it down, and then I put it at heat at 68. So it never goes below there, and it actually does start to heat up over nighttime. And I have a schedule set so it bumps it up to 72. So we're waking up to 72, and it actually makes it easier to wake up in the morning for me. And for her, it's like she's not freezing when she wakes up. So there's compromises there that you can make. Next is stress. If you can, try and get rid of the stress that you have control over. So things like social media usage. Getting an app blocker is one of the best things I ever did for myself, and now I'm recommending it to clients and they're loving it too. Getting an app blocker to limit your exposure to social media. And if you're one of those people that's like, no, I need to see the news, I need to be up to date, just know, as somebody who has actively avoided the news, I still have never had an issue finding out what I need to find out. All the important stuff still makes it. And then if you are really controlling for the controllables and you're like, listen, I can only do what I can do, like the spheres of control where it's like we have zero control, some control, and most control. We have no control mostly over things like the weather, politics, and things like that. we can vote, we can do these things, but at the end of the day, we don't have a lot of control over that. So if you want to do a deep dive when those times come, when those important times come, awesome. But other than those times that are out of your control, like focus your energies towards the things that will help you be the best version of you, because it does feel good to feel informed, but at the end of the day, most of the time, it doesn't make a damn bit of difference. Okay. Do the things that make the difference when you can, but understand what doesn't make a difference. And then also, like when it comes to stress, toxic people, like there's those people that love to emotional dump, that love to call you and waste your time, and just those people that you can create boundaries with, try to create those boundaries. Like having a do not disturb on is a great thing. Okay. I understand that people have kids and everything, but guess what? Do not disturb, you can adapt it so that only certain people come through. So for me, my do not disturb, only my fiance can get through. Sorry, mom and dad. But you can make it so that the people that need to get to you can, and those others, they get filtered out. And if they really need to talk to you, they can text you, and then you can decide when to call them back. So it puts you in the driver's seat. And then last but not least is limiting booze. Booze makes everything harder. It doesn't matter how much, how little you have, it will affect sleep, especially if you have it closer and closer to bedtime. There is no healthy amount of alcohol. Let's just put that out there. There isn't. There has never been a case for alcohol being healthy in any amount. The only thing that they found is that, I can never say it right, resveratrol, I want to say that's how you say it, that it has it in there in like red wine. But guess what? The amount that you would need would actually be counterintuitive and negatively impact your health by the amount of alcohol you would need to consume. So don't get it from there. Get it from other whole food sources. I believe they're in grapes. So there you go. All right. Then once you've done all those, once your steps are in a good spot, consistently working out, got your whole foods, your sleep is on point, your stress is good to go, you limit booze. Honestly, a lot of people will just see fat loss, weight loss right away just from that. I've seen it happen more times than I can count. But let's say you do all that and nothing's budging, then set yourself up with a slight calorie deficit. Like start tracking your food, see where your calories are at, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to get you the results. If you have an aversion to calorie tracking, that's like having an aversion to having knowledge. That's like saying, oh, I can't look at my bank account ever because that will just send me off the ledge. No, it's just a bank account of the energy coming in, coming out of your body. That's it. Let's treat it as such. Okay. And when you are able to do that, like say whatever your maintenance is, like track whatever you're eating right now. And if you're not losing any weight, that's your maintenance. Just take off about 250 to 500 calories right there. And ideally, we want to lose about half a pound to 2 pounds per week on average for the month. That does not mean you'd go 1 week and you don't lose anything and you think you're failing. No, that's not true. Cut that shit out. Okay. Wait for the month. Okay. Wait for the month to finish. And then on that last week of the month, do your weigh in. And if it doesn't show a whole lot, do a couple more like in the upcoming days and see what your lowest weight is, and also take measurements. Okay, I like the neck, waist, and hips because those are pretty consistent when they show fat loss and inch reductions. Okay, because when you do this, you can know that, hey, if you gain weight and you lose or maintain inches, then if you gain weight and you lose inches, you can assume safely that you are burning body fat. And then if you gain weight and maintain inches, you have built muscle and not put on any fat. If you maintain your weight and you lose or maintain your inches, then you can assume that, hey, you burned body fat if you lost inches. And if you maintain the inches, you know that that is like true maintenance. And if you lose weight and lose inches, you know that you burned fat. And you may, if you lost weight, if you lost a lot of weight, you may have lost a little bit of muscle. So you don't want that to happen. We'll get into that in a sec. If you lost weight and inches are the same or more, then you definitely lost a little bit of muscle. And if your weight is up and your inches up, then you can safely say, hey, I gained fat. Okay. Now, the goal with this, notice I say fat loss, not weight loss intentionally here, is because you should be focusing on fat loss, not weight loss, because weight is just a unit of measurement that is encapsulated by a number of things, fat being one of them, fluid being another, glycogen, water, things like that. It all adds up. Your poo, your pee, all that stuff is weight. You want to know what kind of weight is coming off. And for most people, based on the numbers I gave you, that number that we want to bring down is fat. Okay. And that'll put you in a much better place body composition wise to optimize your hormones, to give you the most energy, to reduce joint stress and all that stuff. So we want to focus on fat loss, not weight loss. And the goal with fat loss is also to fight like hell to keep muscles, strength train while you do it. Because, like I said, muscle will help you keep it on long term, but also muscle will help you feel good throughout the process. And you don't want to sacrifice muscle for weight loss, because when people take it to that extreme, like people on the GLP-1s right now that are not strength training, or the people that crash dieted in the 90s and that heroin chic era and drove themselves to be super, super unhealthily skinny, that carries a risk of osteoporosis, sarcopenia, and all these things that will affect your quality of life. So you don't want that to happen either. You want to do this the right way, not just chase a number and be like, okay, I got there, but I feel like shit. No, there's nothing worse than that feeling, putting in all that effort to not feel like $1,000,000. Okay. And that's really the thing that I want to end on, which is focus on improvement, not suffering. Okay. Instead of going into your workout saying, I'm just going to crush myself. No, go in saying, I'm going to lift 5 more pounds this time around, or I'm going to do an extra rep or two this time, or your cardio is going to improve. You're going to go for longer mileage, or you're going to be able to like do more work or the same work without jacking your heart rate up because your cardiorespiratory fitness is now better. Okay. Or you notice outside of the gym, you have so much more energy. You're powering through the day instead of dragging through the day, or you're more independent. Now, instead of maybe having to hold on to the bar to sit up from the toilet or like use some assistance to get you out of a chair, now you're hopping up like it's no problem whatsoever. Maybe it's a mental thing. Maybe now you have all this mental clarity because all that stress, all that noise inside of your head is now quieted because you just put it all into the weights, or you just like did an awesome cardio session and really just worked everything out. And now you're just living this best version of you, and you don't want to lose that, because now instead of, oh, I just need to eat this way, or I need to do all these things that I don't actually want to do. Now, instead of like suffering through it and putting up with stuff that you don't want to do, now you're chasing this awesome version of you that is incredible, and you love living that way, and you just don't want to give that up. And that's what's going to get you the results long term. That's what's going to hold on to all the stuff that you just busted your ass for. So I hope that everybody here gets to that level. I really, really do. But a lot of people do need help getting there. And that's literally what I do on a daily basis. So if you are interested in coaching, you could do it in person with the personal training here with me in Greenville, North Carolina, or over Zoom if you're not in the area or your schedule doesn't allow you to get here physically. You could join us on Zoom, or I also do online coaching. It's accountability coaching. So I give you all the tools to succeed. We check in very frequently to make sure you stay on track and do the job. And then we also have our community of clients that are pretty much everybody, the online people, the in-person people. And we meet on Zoom every week and do meetings, kind of like some of the more popular programs that like will do meetings on the weekly to keep you on track, feel that community aspect, and be a part of an awesome group of people that are all on the same path that you are. So if you're interested, go ahead and click the link down below in the description or the show notes, wherever you're watching or listening. And if you haven't already, get your Fit 40 starter kit. Okay. It's got workouts in there. It's got a nutrition guide. It's got recipes and a 7-day reset calendar, which are all incredibly helpful along the journey. So definitely get that. All right. That's it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you learned a thing or two. If you heard something and you're like, damn, that one person in my head right now, they need to hear this, send it their way. They'll be happy you did. And so will I. So thank you in advance. But yeah, I'll see you next time. Go kick some ass. Bye-bye.